Have you ever opened an old album and felt like you were stepping into another world? Those photos? They are more than just paper and ink. They are doors opening up past moments, emotions that seem to have lain dormant. But why? Every time I look back, my heart skips a beat. Perhaps these photos not only preserve memories, but also contain something deeper. Fulcanelli, the legendary alchemist, once said an old photograph is more than a memory. It is a map. When viewed correctly, each wrinkle is a sign pointing toward the light. So, if we look at those pictures not only with our eyes, but with our hearts and souls, what will we see? Perhaps we will see a journey, our own journey, from past to present, from experiences to understanding. Imagine each photo is a step, leading us to a place in our mind where we can face ourselves with our joys, our sorrows, and even things that have never been named. In alchemy, there is a stage called sublimation. It is when the raw material is transformed into the essence, when the seemingly ordinary becomes extraordinary. And memory, when properly viewed, can undergo such sublimation as well. Have you ever wondered, why do some memories keep coming back, even though we try to forget them? Perhaps they have not completed their mission. Are they waiting for us to understand, to accept, and to transform? In this journey, we don't need to change the past. We just need to change the way we look at the past. Because when we change our perspective, we change both our present and our future. So, are you ready to open your memory album? Let's embark on a journey of sublimation of memories together, to find the light hidden deep within each old photo. Memory is not a place to hide, but a place to find yourself. Have you ever felt like time stopped when you were immersed in a memory? An old photo, a familiar scent, an old melody can take you back to a past moment as if it had just happened. In those moments, the clock loses its meaning. Past and present merge. Time becomes invisible. Fulcanelli once said, "Memory is where the soul transcends the limits of time, where past and present coexist in one eternal moment." In alchemy, the sublimation stage is the process of sublimation, when matter is raised from its crude state to a purer state. Similarly, when we look back on memories not to regret, but to understand and learn, we are undertaking a process of inner transformation. Try thinking of a memory that you often return to. It could be a happy moment, a deeply sad moment, or something unresolved. Why does that memory keep coming back? Is it waiting for you to understand it better? To accept it? To transform it? When we take time to look back at those memories with compassion and understanding, we allow ourselves to rise from the past, to live more fully in the present. You might try writing down those memories, not to lament, but to discover the lessons hidden within. Every memory, whether happy or sad, carries a message, a gift for you. When you sublimate your memories, you not only free yourself from the burdens of the past, but also open up new possibilities for the present and a future. Memory is not a place to hide, but a place to find yourself. Oh, do you remember the last time you saw yourself in an old photo? Did you recognize the person in the photo as yourself? Or did you have to look closely for a moment, then whisper, "Is that me?" I had that moment. I saw a young girl standing in a flower garden, smiling a smile I could not remember ever having. And in that moment, something profound resonated within me. person in the photo? Is it still me in alchemy? Sublimation is not just evaporation. It is elevation. The soul, through the stages of life, does not remain in the same form, but is always changing, always evolving. Fulcanelli once wrote, "The true self is not in form. It is that which is beyond form." So is the person in the photo, with dark hair, bright eyes, hands that have never had age spots. Me, or just a shell of me from a bygone era. If you've ever opened an old album and suddenly felt like a stranger to yourself, you're not alone. It's not because you've changed too much. It's because you've evolved. The person in the photo is you, but also not you anymore. Like in alchemy, metal must go through many stages of separation, refining, heating, sublimation, before it becomes gold. Have you ever looked at old photos and wondered, what was I thinking at that time? Did I know that life would turn this way? Was I really smiling, or just acting for the camera? We don't remember exactly what we thought in that photo. But the amazing thing is, we still feel our soul in it. Though the image is old, the spirit within still leaves a trace of light. Not clear, but real. In the journey of ascension, alchemy asks you to move up, not by force, but by awareness. Look back at yourself without blame. Look back at the past without clinging. That is the first step of spiritual sublimation. I started practicing every time I looked at old photos. I wouldn't say I wish I was. And I say, thank you for being. Because without the person in the photo, I would not be here today. With all my depth, with all my empathy, with my eyes that have seen loss and recovery. I invite you to try this. Pick an old photo. Look at it for a long time. And ask, what is this person teaching me about myself? Is this person smiling because he or she is truly happy? And today, can I smile like that, but not because of my appearance, but because of the light inside me? Alchemy does not teach us to return to our old form. Alchemy teaches us to contemplate each layer of I we have passed through, to understand the soul never repeats itself. Every old photo is a shell. Every shell has fallen away for you to climb. You are no longer the person in the picture, but you are also them, in a new form, fuller, broken, and put back together with understanding. I no longer look like the person in the photo, but I know that person is the foundation. And I, today, am a version that is flying up. Not free from the past, but thanks to the past, able to touch the light. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and asked yourself, since when did these wrinkles appear? They don't come all at once. They come little by little. Every sleepless night, every quiet cry, every moment we try to smile even though our hearts are breaking. Then one day, we see them clearly as a system of lines that no one has drawn. That time, emotions, and our souls have carved onto our faces. Have you ever wanted to erase some marks? Have you ever run your finger across the corner of your eye and thought, if they disappear, will we ever be young again? I used to be like that too. Until I read a passage in Fulcanelli, alchemists do not rub away marks on metal. They observe the flow pattern carefully, for it is the guide to the next stage. And I started to see wrinkles differently, no longer a mark of time, but a sign of the soul. We all carry a map on our face. No one is the same. No one needs to be ashamed, because the map only appears when you really walk. Every wrinkle is a path, a story, a storm weathered, a love, a loss, a dream shattered. But the light remains. I started taking a minute every morning to look closely in the mirror. Not to check for aging, but to recognize someone who has come a long way and is still going, cheeks slightly sagged, but the same place that used to redden when she smiled genuinely. Eyes slightly droopy, but eyes that have seen things no one else would see. The corners of his mouth were down, but it was a place where so many things had been kept unsaid. I don't feel old anymore. I feel knowledgeable. You can try. Once. Stand in front of a mirror, close your eyes, and when you open them, don't look to fix, but look to know. Look and see you have lived. You have cried. You have laughed. You have been disappointed. You have hoped. And no one has the right to force you to cover up those evidences. In alchemy, raw metal, when heated, leaves burn marks. These marks, rather than being erased, are retained by the alchemist to read the internal structure. Your face is metal that has been burned, and the wrinkles are the manifestation of the sublimation stage. The soul has begun to fly, but leaves behind signs of where it once resided. One day, I took out an old photo and placed it next to the mirror. I compared it, and I wasn't sad. I looked at the person in the photo. Beautiful, fresh, unscathed. I looked at the person in the mirror, deeper, fuller, and deep. I am no longer someone being photographed. I am someone who is recording each day of my life with the strokes of time, no longer ugly, but a sacred map. And the magic is only when you learn to read that map will you know where you are on your journey back to your true self. I used to fear wrinkles. Now I cherish them as signs of a soul that has lived without regrets. There are nights when I can't sleep, even though the lights are off, even though there's no sound, even though the room is as quiet as if no one has ever been there. But inside me, everything was still lit up. Not the light from outside, but old images, memories that had been sleeping during the day, now waking up like a child, sleepwalking. I heard someone's laughter again, saw the scene that had faded from my memory, smelled the scent of the sun on an old shirt, and suddenly remembered a name that no one called anymore. Have you ever been like that? When night falls, it seems like a door opens, leading us to another world. No clock, no logic, no boundary between reality and dreams. In alchemy, it is the moment of the silent furnace. No smoke, no fire, just the warmth smoldering beneath the darkness. Fulcanelli wrote in the unpublished manuscript, "The night is not a place for sleep. It is the meeting room of memory and spirit." I understand that from my own sleepless nights. Day is the realm of action, night is the realm of reflection, because during the day, we are busy living, busy playing roles, busy answering, busy solving problems. But when everything is turned off, the mask falls off. We encounter things we never wanted to face, and memories, seemingly forgotten fragments, return with all the original emotions, without invitation, without knocking. Have you ever had a night where you couldn't tell if you were remembering or reliving? It is the real night. Not the night outside, but the night within, where all the light of reason is extinguished, and the true light from the soul can shine forth. I learned not to fear the night anymore. I started keeping a notebook by my pillow. Whenever the memories surfaced, I didn't push them away. I listened. I note tonight, my mother came back in my dream, didn't say anything, just smiled. I remember the last hug, the smell of my father's shirt, my son's voice when he was 7 years old. Mom, I'm not going to school tomorrow. Not to be sad, but to allow all memories to be present and then to be released. In alchemy, the material only begins to rise when it is slowly heated in the dark. Not cooked too quickly, not burned, just warmed slowly until it becomes lighter. Memory is the same. To sublimate, it needs the space of night. It needs silence. It needs someone to deliberately sit down and read each unwritten page. I have had many nights like that. No sleep, but nothing lost. On the contrary, I found the pieces I thought were gone. Each time, I no longer felt myself growing old. I felt myself growing fuller, not with muscle or memory, but with the light of understanding. I started calling it night practice hour, like an alchemist keeping watch in the kitchen at midnight, so as not to miss the moment when gold begins to condense. If you are reading this on a sleepless night, I invite you not to forget. Write. Remember. Let each memory be told in the voice of today's you, a more mature person, gentle enough to embrace your past self. Night is not the enemy of peace. It is the training room where the memories of the day are brought out into the light and sublimated as a separate light, appearing only when there is no other light. I used to think, to heal, I had to relive what I had lost. Go back in time. Do what I had not done. Apologize to those who were no longer here. Fix what I had broken. I used to think so. But you know what? Reliving the past is something no one can do. And the wonderful thing is, we don't have to. Fulcanelli, in describing the sublimation stage in alchemy, wrote, "No substance returns to its former form after it has been transformed. The task is not to undo, but to see the true nature of what has passed, to find the light it has left behind." Same with memories. You don't have to relive them to understand them. You just have to see them with new eyes. I used to look back at old photos, and my heart was filled with regret. I wish I loved them more. I wish I weren't so stubborn. I wish I said thank you in time. The if-onlys just keep coming, like a never-ending chain of regrets. Until one day, I sat down with myself and asked if I could go back in time. Would I really do anything differently? The answer, painfully honest, is maybe not. Because that was all I knew at the time. I loved the way I knew. I chose what I thought was right. And I was wrong to the extent of my understanding at that time. And then I forgive. Not for anyone, but for myself. Not because I was so bad, but because I was honest with the awareness I had at that time. From that moment on, old photos no longer make me cry. They become letters from my old soul to me today. Not to blame, but to remind I've been through all this. And now, I can understand. That's enough. Alchemy does not teach you to destroy. Alchemy teaches you to distill. You don't have to erase all the bad memories. You just have to extract the essence of the experience, a few drops of light, and carry it with you. Light is a feather. When you understand, pain is no longer sharp. It becomes light. I once heard a Zen master say, "Nothing in life happens to make you miserable. Everything happens to make you grow. If only you are quiet enough to learn it. Memories, which never sleep, will continue to return. But since I learned to look back to understand, not to relive, I have changed roles. I am no longer the actor in that flashback. I am the storyteller. I am the distiller. I pick out an emotion. I look at it. I say, thank you for teaching me to love someone more deeply, teaching me to be silent at the right time, and teaching me that loss can also become a great teacher. I did not go back in time, but I went inside the memory, not to recreate it, but to read it in the light of today. That is alchemy. That is sublimation. And that is how the soul grows. No need to relive. No need to do again. Just understand and carry with you the filtered light of what seemed lost. That is memory in its purest form. Have you ever thought that your life story could be rewritten? I'm not talking about changing the past. No one can do that. But I'm talking about the language you use to tell that past. Because you know what? We are all storytellers, not just to others, but to ourselves. Every night, every time we stand in front of the mirror, every time we look at an old photograph, the stories we choose to tell become the way we see ourselves. If you keep saying, I missed out on so much, I failed, I was never good enough, then that memory will freeze and you will forever live in the damaged version. But if you say, I once loved very sincerely, even though the ending was not as expected, I didn't know any better. But I learned from that. I'm still growing up, even at my old age. Then you begin to rewrite yourself, not with lies, but with the light of understanding. I started writing down my memories as a morning ritual, not writing for others to read, but writing so that my mind and heart begin to speak the same language. For example, I once wrote that I wasn't good enough, so he left. Now I write, we were no longer the right people for each other's journeys. And I learned a lot from that breakup. Formerly, I missed so many opportunities because of fear. Now, that fear was the best thing I could have done. But today I know I'm bigger than that fear. Just a slight change of language is a small, but profound alchemical step. Because in alchemy, people not only change the chemical nature, but also rename the element when it transforms. Are you ready to rename yourself in the light of today? When you rewrite the past with a lighter view, you are not lying. You are reinterpreting. And interpretation is a privilege of the one who has lived it. I used to carry many hidden cuts in my heart. They didn't bleed, but they made me tell old stories over and over again in a sad tone. One day, I got tired of that voice. I want to hear another version, one where I am not the victim, but the one who learned something valuable. And I started writing. I wrote that I was once painfully naive. But it was that naivety that helped me believe in beauty so completely. I made the mistake of loving the wrong person. But from then on, I learned to love myself. Every day a small passage, even if it is only a few lines. I have distilled memories into a gentle juice. No more bitterness, no more pain. Only a feeling of gratitude remains because I have gone through it and still have the chance to rewrite myself. Would you like to try? All you need is a notebook, a pen, and a little courage to look again with new eyes. No need to write well, just write honestly. And most importantly, write as if you were telling a story to someone you love the most, and the version of yourself that has gone through many layers of time. Rewriting our lives is not about changing the facts. It's about changing how we live with those facts. And sometimes, just changing a few words can heal the whole heart. One day, I suddenly forgot a very familiar name. I've used it for years. It's the name of someone I loved deeply. I didn't forget completely. It only took me a few minutes to call back. But in that brief moment, I found myself panicking. If I forget the name of someone I once loved, will I ever forget that love? If I forget, am I still myself? That was the first moment I understood memory and recollection are not the same thing. In alchemy, sublimation does not retain form. It retains essence. Once the soul has extracted something into light, the outer form may be lost, but no one can take away the light. Fulcanelli once said, "Fire does not retain ash, but gas." Memory is not in the name, but in the energy you lived with it. When I remember that, the fear goes away. I started looking back at everything I had been through, the people who had passed through my life, the scenes of life long gone, and I wonder if one day I forget their names, forget their faces. Then what will remain? The answer is emotion, a warmth, a light, a certain stirring in my heart that I can't name. But know for sure, it's imprinted. I realized memories are not really images. It is a layer of essence that the soul retains after distilling all images, sounds, and names, like perfume. A small drop that contains a whole garden has dissolved into the wind. Have you ever heard a song and couldn't remember the name, but your heart fluttered as if you were meeting someone again? It is the memory that has passed through the mind and entered the soul, and the magic is once the memory has entered that layer, no one can take it away. No old age, no disease, no forgetfulness. I used to be afraid of losing my memory. Now I am not afraid anymore, because I know what is understood is forever. Names may fade, photographs may fade, but if you have ever known something, loved, hurt, forgiven, the moment you know it to the core, it becomes part of your soul. Alchemy calls it spirit separated from body. No physical evidence needed, no memory needed, just presence needed. And I believe that when my body weakens, when my memory fades, what I have understood will still remain. It's no longer a story, it's a light. Have you ever had a warm feeling when passing by a familiar place, but can't remember why it feels familiar? Maybe your soul has left its mark there. Maybe your memory has turned into light and is guiding you even when memory has fallen asleep. Since I understood this, I live differently. I no longer try to keep everything in my head. I try to live fully so that the memories are absorbed into my soul, not just in my memory. I love as if it were my last. I say thank you while I can. I forgive quicker. I write more. I look deeper, not to memorize, but to distill. Because when the time comes, what will remain will not be the name, but the amount of light I have kept in my heart. Memory is not something to be kept in the head. It is something to be lit, never to be extinguished in the consciousness. And what has been understood, no one, nothing can take it away from you. I spent years trying to find the old version of myself. I looked at the photo and thought, I wish I were still that person. I read my old diary and regret I used to think deeply, used to live fiercely. Why am I so calm now? Sometimes I wear an old dress, cook an old dish, listen to an old song, just to find the feeling of being me of a time. But you know what? It never worked. And not because I failed, but because I was no longer that person. And that person was no longer me. Fulcanelli once wrote in a short footnote, "The good metallurgist never hopes to recover the original substance. He is concerned only with the refined substance from which the substance has been derived." Alchemy is not restoration. Alchemy is becoming something completely different. No repetition, no going back, only evolution. I began to let go of the question, how do I get back to who I was? And instead, I ask, who am I becoming? Because of all that I've been through. I looked in the mirror. I was no longer the person in the photo. But I saw in my eyes a look I had never seen in my 20s, the look of someone who had fallen, stood up, and then chosen to love life with a silent gratitude. I rewrote my diary, not as a teenager fervently questioning the meaning of life, but as someone who has lived, made mistakes, suffered, and now accepts what has happened the way the sky accepts clouds. I don't look for the old eyes. I look for the new light that has arisen from the old wounds. And what I realized was, the best version of me is not in the past, but is being created every day from what I understand. No need to put on makeup to look the same. No need to retell the same story like it's the best chapter of your life. I began to live as if each day were a self-information, not a copy of memories, but an accumulation of light. Do you ever feel like you're still yourself, but not the same yourself anymore? That feeling is not scary. It is a sign that you are going through sublimation, the stage where your soul rises above its old form. No longer anyone's mother, wife, daughter. No longer a title, an age, a position, but a separate soul, taking shape again from itself. I once tried to keep an old photo at all costs. Now I put it in the box, gently, not because I forgot, but because I don't need it to know who I am. I brought something deeper with me, the light that those years left behind. That light is not in the lines. It is in the way I face today, slower, deeper, lighter. If you are looking for yourself through old photos, I invite you to stop for a moment, not because you're wrong, but because you're different. Instead of searching, start listening to the new you that is calling you. Not who you used to be, but what you are becoming. Not based on memory, but based on the light you are emitting every day. I am no longer looking for myself, because I don't need to be who I was before to live fully today. I just need to become a version extracted from all the love, loss, learning, and light. I wanted to keep it all, every beautiful moment, every family reunion, every long trip, every glance from my loved ones on sunny or rainy afternoons. I used to be afraid that time would take everything away. So I took pictures. Lots of pictures. Sometimes just to keep a distant glance. Sometimes just to keep the back of someone walking through the late afternoon hallway. I collect memories with a lens. I preserve loved ones with pictures. But then, one day, while sorting through hundreds of old photos, I suddenly stopped. I look at my face in a photo from 10 years ago. I see the smile. I see the hair still black. I see the eyes still sparkling. But I had no feelings. I only saw someone who used to be me, but was no longer me. And for the first time, I wondered, am I holding on to a photo? Or am I holding on to the image of someone who has already left? Alchemy teaches that all forms are temporary. What remains after the sublimation stage has no form, only light. Fulcanelli once said, "When alchemists complete their work, they do not need to retain the original elements. They only need the condensed light Because that light is the accomplishment. I think life is the same. We don't need to keep every face, every laugh, every gesture. We just need to live in each moment so fully that it dissolves into us, into light. I started taking less photos, not because I didn't love life, but because I learned to live so deeply that I didn't need to keep anything. I sat next to my mother and just looked. No phone, no pictures. I walked in the afternoon sun and just breathed. No filming, no posting. I learned to become a memory in that very moment of living. No one needs to remind me, because I have lived deeply enough that that light cannot leave me. Someone asked me if one day all the photos disappeared, would you be scared? I laughed. I said no, because the most precious thing is not in the picture. It is in me. And you know, when you really live by the light, you no longer need proof. You no longer need to remember, because you become what you have lived. The final photograph is no longer the photograph you took, but the light that radiates from your very presence today. No need to write it down, because you have already engraved it in your soul, in your eyes, in the way you gently embrace life every morning. I put the camera in a wooden box. I wrote a line. The picture is enough. Now it's time to just light. If you are still trying to keep every photo so you don't forget, I invite you not to be afraid. You don't forget what you lived. You only forget what you never let the light through. Live today deeply enough, truly enough, brightly enough, so that you don't need to record, but just become. I no longer need to take the last picture, because I know I have become the light in every picture I have tried to keep.